Welcome back, everyone, to theCUBE here at our NYSE studios. Of course, we have our Palo Alto studio connecting Wall Street and Silicon Valley. This is our Crypto Trailblazers series, part of our NYSE program and community, where we break down all the action leaders who are making it happen, bringing this next generation crypto infrastructure as the financial system is replumbed or recast, re-engineered as money goes digital, physical AI, physical crypto. You're seeing the convergence of the systems coming together, kind of the core crypto with mainstream. That's been the topic. Since Hung is the CEO of GSR. Welcome to theCUBE, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, John, absolute pleasure to be here.
You're the CEO, you're a very multifaceted company, and I want to get into kind of what I was talking about in the monologue there, intro. The mainstreaming is happening, okay? And obviously the global climate has been good outside the United States up until this year, now the this past regime. Now the United States kicks in, you got stable coins. The money system is leaning in, that's my feeling.
100%, yes.
Before we get into that, explain what GSR does, because you guys have all the pieces. You've got VC, go ahead.
Yeah, sure, look, we've been in the space for 12 years, where we were older than Ethereum, actually. So we were set up in 2013, initially to be the liquidity provider for Ripple, XRP, on the consensus ledger, and then helping them with the on-demand liquidity project, which is solving for remittance movements being faster, cheaper, better, right, across border. First client in 2013, but with the ICO boom in 2017, we diversified hugely, and we've served to date, inception to date, probably 600 token issuers. We have 180 live clients today, and we serve half a dozen regulated exchanges in the world in terms of being the liquidity provider, making sure the experience is good for all the participants. So that's our core business, but we've expanded hugely beyond that, as you touched on earlier.
Explain the liquidity angle, because I think this is super the key right now, super important. The liquidity with stable coins is set the table, okay, gives a lot of confidence, certainly excitement. What does the liquidity mean for folks watching? How should they understand the role of liquidity and what you guys do?
It's, the way I like to talk about it is, any exchange is like a two-sided marketplace. Think of any consumer app like Uber going into a new city. As a taker of liquidity, i.e. a rider, you want to have the best experience. What does that mean? That means the supply of the liquidity, which is the driver, that's who we are. We have to sit there with our app open. We have to make sure that there's density of supply in any given radius of where the takers are, and you get that great experience. In the Uber, it's how long does it take to hail a cab? With exchanges, it's how can I transact reasonable volumes as an institution in a small space of time with the minimum amount of slippage, with minimum transaction fees and minimum spreads, right? So those are our KPIs, spread, steps, and uptime.
Yeah, you mentioned Uber because one of the things we've actually interviewed all the Uber engineers. It's a hard data problem.
Yes.
You got people, places, and things. You got drivers, they're all independent riders at any given time. As long as the app, it could be anyone. And they want to go somewhere.
Yep.
So you got maps, cars, and they had to build a really complex system to do that. And distributed computing, that's great. Now you got decentralization. Are we there right now? Where are we on the infrastructure? Because Uber only happens with mobile. It only happens with the two-sided marketplace. How are we, where would you peg our progress in the decentralization side of as full flow, two full flowing money, crypto, liquidity, fiat, crypto to stablecoin, crypto to fiat or stablecoin? It's like there's multiple liquidity angles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the infrastructure's come a long way since we were just getting started in the space, right? If you think about the trading use case, first and foremost, perhaps, we've gone from no transactions happening on chain to about 15 to 20% of all crypto transactions happening on chain now. How has that happened? Well, Ethereum's been a huge part of that. We're here to celebrate 10 years of Ethereum. Moving from, a proof of work chain to a proof of stake chain, and therefore becoming more efficient, allowing more throughput by having layer 2 scaling solutions on top of that, yet remaining secure and decentralized. Having people be able to trust that my asset's going to be safe and my transactions are going to happen, with reasonable speed and
Yeah.
reasonable cost. That then enabled the DeFi summer of 2021,
Yeah.
where there was an explosion of trading, borrow lending protocols,
Yeah.
etc. And finally, people were able to transact peer-to-peer with relatively low all-around costs. That created the emergence of the automated market maker model of exchanges, but that was still clunky, right? Liquidity providers had to come and suffer impermanent loss there, and the capital efficiency wasn't great. Now we've gone a step further and built central limit order book style experiences on chain, right? We've seen that happen in the most recent year with perpetual swap dexes gain huge amounts of traction. So it's come a huge way, and we've been a big contributor in that ecosystem.
Yeah, and who are your customers? Who do you serve?
So, as I said, historically we've served primarily token issuers. That means the corporates
ICO.
in the world. Yes, exactly.
Or I want to put a token out there.
Yeah, that means the entrepreneurs that are building
Utility
something.
tokens.
Yeah, utility tokens, either infrastructure layer or application layer. 600 since inception, 180 live, and then exchanges. Those have been the two main end markets. But we've broadened from being just a liquidity provider to being a full service capital markets partner. That sounds kind of clunky, but what does it mean? Think of us like an investment bank for Web3. Digital assets, right? People ask us, what does GSR stand for? We often joke it means Goldman Sachs reinvented. Think right?
I love that. I'm going to use that.
Exactly.
It's very memorable.
Yeah, well, a couple of our co-founders happen to be Goldman employees or Goldman Sachs retirees. That's the other one that we use.
Retirees who came out of retirement.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, this is what's exciting because, people are coming out of retirement if they retired early and made some money, or if they have domain expertise. They've seen the movie before.
That's right.
In the centralized world. So they say, okay, they can see the white space, they see the opportunities, and they can go after them. So I have to ask you, you got DeFi and TradFi, two of the concepts that are kicked around. I mean, I'm from a tech background, so to me it's back end, front end.
Yeah.
The front end of the market in this world, the TradFi is booming. The demand for crypto is high. Retail is high. I mean, ETFs are forming. So, and you're seeing all the institutions who have a front end like thing, whether it's credit or other things, are putting products together.
That's right.
So you're seeing the old guard kind of leaning in, refreshing with the new guard.
Yeah.
And that shifted the mindset from mercenary or missionary. I mean, Silicon Valley used to have an expression, are you a pirate or a ninja?
I like that.
Okay, so pirates would steal and pillage things and take over and basically take over.
Yeah.
Missionaries are much more, mellower, more technical, partnering. So I think we're in a missionary market.
100%.
You agree? Okay.
Yeah.
Explain why that's important.
Completely agree. Like, it's got to be the focus on quality now. Quality issuers. What does that mean? That means real product market fit, real adoption, right? No fake volumes, no, use cases that are problems, solutions looking for problems, in fact, right? That's what we've seen, because any foundational technology that is disruptive will have this kind of shift, and now the business models are becoming clearer.
There's always an underbelly in all new trends. I mean, there's always things happening. But I think that's important, because I think adoption is key. But what I find fascinating, coming from Silicon Valley here now living here in the studio and working out of here, is that there's money on the table. You can't ignore money. I mean, there's real money to be made.
Yes.
Share your thoughts on that, because if you go back to the ICO days, I mean, it was a promising market. People were enthusiastic, but people were just taking their tokens and converting it to fiat. Yeah. And some ran to the hills, bad actors, but then it went to the nuclear winter phase, but people still built businesses. So now this money, Wall Street does not ignore money.
No, of course, and the network effects that are available by having a token that incentivizes adoption means those network effects are amplified more so than the Web2 space, right? But just to double click on what you said earlier about pirates versus missionaries, I like that, because we've always tried to do the right thing. We've tried to be very regulatory forward. We're the only market maker to have a payments license in Singapore, to have acquired a broker-dealer shell here in the US, where we're expanding rapidly, to have no action letter in Switzerland, to have a registration in the UK FCA. Why? Because we've all come from regulated markets. We understand that it requires people that are consistently delivering on promises, obligations for the KPIs I mentioned earlier, so that we have orderly markets develop in a healthy way. And that means we've expanded from just being a market maker to being a full-service partner that helps hold the hand of any entrepreneur trying to build in this space from inception until maturity. That means the first institutional ticket in to help guide them, but it's also helping them to achieve mass adoption by being involved in digital asset treasuries.
I mean, capital market service is essentially funding in liquidity.
Exactly.
Basic concept.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you bring up that, that long game view. There are folks in crypto that I've worked with, the leaders, the ones that are winning now, especially as it's going mainstream and everyone, and by the way, there's more migration coming in, new migration coming into the sector. The long game players got it. It's like they can see the future.
Yes.
And they're visionaries, I guess you can call them visionaries, but they did the work because they knew that if they don't do the work, the regulatory piece could be a fatal flaw.
That's right.
Explain why that's important, because there's no shortcuts here. You guys took the long game approach.
Exactly. Yeah, we have to be long-term greedy here. You know, there are plenty of firms that have been speculative, have made a quick buck and gone away. We don't believe that's the way to have real progress in this field, right? I think institutions coming in and having mainstream adoption, we're just at that inflection point. We've been waiting for this for 10 plus years. It's encouraging. My old employer, BlackRock, you know, issuing tokenized money market funds bill on Ethereum, right? That's a game changer because
it's validation.
Oh, it's validation, but it's more than that. It solves our own pain point as well as trading firms that don't want to take counterparty credit risk with exchanges, because we've seen what happened with FTX a couple of years ago, right? We get to solve that problem because one, we get to park these assets at banks that are, you know, give us legal protection. Two, we get to enjoy yield on top of that, right? And so it's security, and it's and that's going to build trust and more adoption. Yeah,
trust and adoption are very critical, and also confidence, right? Like
100%.
You know, when you have trust, confidence, and adoption, then the money's flowing, the system is built. And what I find interesting and I love about this market is that you have communities, which is, Ethereum's got a great community, and all crypto infrastructure players have community, especially around all the flows. But when you bring in real institutions, okay, it's almost a team sport in the sense of figuring out, because you have now domain expertise. You were at BlackRock, so you saw how the machine worked there, and now you're on the crypto side coming into the mainstream. So, what is your perspective on, as the BlackRocks come in, as the JP Morgan Chases come in, as these institutions come in, they're going to bring something to the table. What is it that they bring to the table? And if you're Goldman Sachs reinvented GSR, they're coming in too. So are they a friend or foe, or is that more tongue in cheek?
Yeah, we're friends. We you know, trading counterparties. We have great relationships with them. But I think it's a new paradigm, right? I think these firms coming in brings validation, as you mentioned earlier, right? And confidence begets confidence. That's the main thing. For example, we could talk about Apollo. Apollo is another firm that has made big splashes in this space, tokenized private credit, ACRED. But combining that brand and that, you know, capability of being a top-tier private credit fund, and then mixing that with the composability that DeFi offers to be able to add leverage through a looping mechanism on Morpho, that's a very unique combination that wouldn't be achievable.
I like where you went there. Let's double click on that, because a lot of people ask me, well, why are they replumbing the system? Because I try to explain to people, look, this is infrastructure. This is financial plumbing in a new thing. Why not keep the old way? What's the benefits of the new system?
You cannot stand in the way of progress, right? Let's take New York Stock Exchange as an example. Let's think about before the 70s, the underlying plumbing was paper-based, right? Literally, securities were kept on paper. That created problems because, hey, look, the volume got so large that the exchange had to stop trading on a Wednesday just so we could shuffle the papers around. That moved to a digital system. Okay, we could trade 5 days a week. Now what's happening is that's all moving into a decentralized ledger. That's more efficient. That enables more liquidity to happen. That enables more efficiency of settlement instantaneously. That's benefit to the underlying users.
Is there any, you mentioned credit, you mentioned leverage. What other things do like BlackRock of the world's get, Apollo, JP Morgan Chase? What's other things do they get from leaning into this? Privatizing, say, funds, you said.
Well, I think
things like that are happening.
It's happening. It's happening. It's also increasing their reach, because why are some funds only able to have subscription redemption cycles once a month, for example. Again, it comes down to efficiency. How do you measure the NAV of a fund, right? Sometimes it's difficult because these are, not always easy to market.
So it's impact and efficiency, really.
Impact, efficiency.
Impact being money making, and efficiency being in how you do it.
Yeah, lowering the barrier to entry so that more people can access this where it's appropriate for them on a risk return perspective, of course, right? We still have to have KYC and accredited investors. I think protections still should be there, but where possible, all else equal, lowering the barrier of entry, more investors in, more money, as you say, that's incentive for everyone. It's a market-driven economy that creates good, competitive effects. So more access, more investors and money, more liquidity, and ultimately more efficiency. That means, instead of settling T+3, T+5, you can settle instantaneously. That's also money. Time is money, right? Where, interest rates are where they are, that's money.
Yeah, and the ownership of the assets and making leverage in those real world assets are coming on chain too. I mean, basically it's digital convergence in real time. I mean, we're finally seeing the cliche of digital convergence.
Yes.
I mean, at a first party level. All right, let's talk about the Ethereum 10-year anniversary celebration. A lot of progress has been made.
That's right.
Over the past few years. A lot of debates, this versus that. Solana, Ethereum, other tokens are out there, multiple chains. There's a lot of competing philosophies. So how would you grade Ethereum now? And are they in a good spot? Is there a to-do list in your mind? What's your thoughts on Ethereum?
Look, I think they've achieved phenomenal success in the last 10 years, but there are still plenty of things to do, right? There's plenty of wood to chop. But let's celebrate the success first. So, first, programmable blockchain with smart contract technology, 10-year track record of being relatively stable and reliable, right? And confidence, that's huge. And ecosystem, the density of developers there and the amount of talent that's creating application layer protocols there, that's probably second to none. Of course there are competing chains, right? And some of them are monolithic chains that are able to also transact higher throughput at lower costs. But it's a trade-off, security versus efficiency. And so, I think that's where they stand today. They've also managed to switch from proof of work to proof of stake. We were talking earlier about me mining Ethereum, in my apartment with graphics cards, and that heats up the room. That's lowered the energy usage of Ethereum. That's important to people these days, right? We want to be conscious of the environment. So huge progress. What else do they need to do? Well, okay, they've attracted retail users from the DeFi applications. They've attracted institutional investors to believe in the stablecoin narrative, right? A post-Genius Act, the issuance has been huge. So what are we at today? $300 billion of market cap in stablecoins, of which Ethereum has a 55% market share. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's significant.
Yeah, but how do they continue to build trust? I think there's a couple of initiatives happening. One is this $1 trillion security initiative, where they're talking about how can we have enough confidence that if we have $1 trillion secured on the network, that it's not going to break down, right? So if 1 billion people can each hold $1,000 of value on chain, that's real prime time adoption, right? And then, other security measures that they're going and executing on. I think there's still a huge roadmap ahead of us to really get to mainstream adoption, but we've come a long way.
Well, great to have you on. Again, this Trailblazer program is fun to celebrate the people who have been there, done that, and continue to work on the key things. My final question for you is one to the builders that are watching. People who are building apps, building technology, whether it's infrastructure or smart contract or whatever, what are the other layer of the stack? What does liquidity mean for them? What if you're successful and you guys are doing well and continue to chop wood, as you said, your success enables them to do what? How would you answer that question?
That's a great question. I think the interesting thing about liquidity and digital assets is it's such a fundamental component of how the system works, right? If you think about securities and stocks, how my smartphone works has nothing to do with the value of the manufacturer of the smartphone in the stock market. However, Ethereum, you've got to pay gas fees, right? You've got to buy it, you've got to buy and sell. So liquidity providers are critical because we're the picks and shovels. We make sure that liquidity is everywhere, it needs to be consumed. We're streaming that to now brokerages and payments providers, and the
You're a key
stablecoin
piece of the
issuers.
puzzle.
We're a key piece of the puzzle. You have to have that liquidity to be able to use the network so that it has value. That's where we come in. That's where we partner with our clients and hold their hand. And we're a little bit like the top tier banks that bring companies to be listed on New York Stock Exchange and IPO. If you want quality partners, if you want to be a top tier player in this space, the missionaries, as you said, right? Not the pirates, then you have to work with quality partners as well.
Well, I was supposed to be in Singapore for the F1 and the big event, Ethereum, last month.
Yeah.
Missed it. When next time I'm in Singapore, I'll definitely see you. Thanks for coming on theCUBE.
Hit me up. Great to meet you.
GSR's here in theCUBE. Again, breaking down all the action. Liquidity is a big piece of the puzzle for builders and for the ecosystem. Money's flowing, people are building, value's being created and extracted. Efficiency and impact seems to be the theme. And again, Ethereum's got to continue to do the work, continue to chop the wood. I'm John Furrier doing our part, chopping the wood here in theCUBE. Wall-to-wall coverage. Thanks for watching.